Welcome to episode 5 of Descent into the Wormhole, where we discuss everything from ancient civilizations to modern day social issues and everything in between. I'm Les.
And I'm Stevie J, and today we're going to take a deep dive into who makes the rules and why we blindly comply. So grab that coffee or hit the cruise control and let's get into it. Well, I'm excited to talk about this one. Rules, who makes them, and why do we blindly follow? And I think both of those questions are equally as important. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
So good. So good. Looking forward to another conversation. And I feel like this is a bit of a spicy one too.
It is because it could ruffle a few feathers when because we got some opinions about this.
We definitely do. And so I guess the first question is, who makes the rules? And there's lots of answers to this, but who makes the rules that we all comply to?
Well, the people in charge.
Yep. And who is that though? That's the thing.
That's the question. We don't know. We don't know who's in charge.
We don't have any idea, but we could speculate.
Right.
And I feel like it's and David Icke says this, it's a web. It's a web that spirals out from the center. Who's at the center? We don't really know. But what we do know is initially what we see in our everyday lives is our governments. Let's start there. Our governments. But really, are they really in control? Yes, they directly tell us what to do and all those things. But who's telling them what to do? Right. Because they're not really in power. And people need to remember that it doesn't matter what political side it is. It doesn't matter who it is, who's the front person for each political party. The same ideals and the same things always get pushed anyway. And so it doesn't matter, like these people every so many years change over, or in my country, every 6 months change over. and yet the same ideas keep getting pushed overall. Yes. So they're just puppets. And who's telling them what to do? That's the question.
That is the real question, because we don't know who's pulling the strings. And I would like the government, like the people at the higher echelons of the government, they would probably know because they're getting their orders from them. But at some point, one would think, and I've always like once started looking into this, like I always thought, like, why hasn't anyone blabbed yet?
Right.
What's the threat? What's that threat holding people so silent that they're terrified to speak up?
Well, it's I think there's a scale to that threat level as well. Like it could start with, you'll lose your job. We won't let you become the front person of this political party. We won't let you be a public figure. We won't let you do this. We won't let you do your job. And then the next level becoming threats of could be violence, could be threats against their family, it could be any of those sorts of things. And I guess, it could be also a positive thing in the beginning for them where they give some sort of incentive, right? Like you do this and we will give you everything. We'll open up the world to you. We'll give you all this money and all of these things. So it could be that to get them into that position. And then after that, that's where the threats come in if they want to actually speak up. And, it's interesting with that, how Edward Snowden, the CIA whistleblower, he's just coming out and been telling the truth for several years. And yet he's still under a great deal of threat from the government because they call telling the truth treason. Right. And it's like, okay, well, when you think about what a government is, it is simply a system of, well, to govern means to control, right? So it's a system of control. Yeah. And what else is interesting about that, talking about the whole like different layers and levels and all of that, if you go back probably thousands, let's go back thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years, to govern a small village of 100 people is quite easy. What do you have to do? You have to make sure that the people's houses or huts are okay and everyone's doing okay in that 100 people. You don't have to really do much. Right. And so your sphere of influence is very small as well. Yes. But as society's grown to millions and billions, and technology has helped with that.
Mhm.
They can now encroach on every single part of people's lives
Right.
to control it through
Yes.
those electronic means. And I just want to say as well, if anybody out there is saying, "Oh, my government cares about me," no, they do not. They do not care about people's well-being. They care about themselves, and that's
Yeah.
all there is
Yeah.
to it.
Well, they have an agenda that they've been handed down. I feel this is just my opinion that they have an agenda that's been handed down, and that agenda is in like what I can see, like bird's eye view, is have the worker bees do more and don't
Yes.
allow them to push back. And if they do push back, you can do A, B, and C. So you can wrap it in a present with a lovely bow on it to say, look what we're giving you. But at the end of the day, we'll give you a present in order for you to do something.
Yep.
It's all bribery. It is all bribery to make us feel that they care about us and to make us feel that we are safe within the confines of our government.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Yeah, and they attach that notion that you're a good person if this is what you do. If you go to work every day for us and slave away and then give us a massive portion of your money in tax, then you're a good person. You're doing what you're supposed to do.
Doing the right thing.
Exactly. The right thing. And what they get out of it, well, they get your labor, they get your resources. And when I say resources, I mean that in a personal sense. Like if you just strip away all of the fabricated and completely made up structures we have in society, and I mean everything like laws, workplaces, all of these things. Now, that's not to say that you can't actually do work, but our own personal resources, which is our time, our energy, our effort, all of those things, our skills. It may
our
be,
knowledge.
Yep. Somebody's a carpenter, somebody's a life coach, whatever the skill is. But the government owns that as well, because they say to do that, you have to register with your tax information. You have to do this and you have to do that. And so you get penalized and jailed if you don't do all of those things.
Yeah.
So these people who make the rules it's nobody we know. It's not the government.
Yeah.
They're just the messengers. The actual rules and the motivations for all the barriers and boundaries we have come from a place we will never know probably. But the reason why we comply is because we'll go to jail, and people don't want to go to jail. So we're actually living in this forced society, this forced world where they make up the rules and we have to do it. Otherwise we end up in prison.
That's right.
And
I was just thinking when you said that, I'm like, yeah, try and make money under the table. Try and make money without, notifying the government that you've done it.
Yeah.
If they find out, you're in a lot of trouble. Why is that? Why can't I earn a couple of bob on the side and keep it? And that's my business. And government's like, oh, no. That money is our business.
Yep.
Because we want our portion, but they didn't do anything. I'm the one who did the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. Yeah. So we get tied into it, and they start us at a very, very young age. Very, very young age. Because they ask you at a very, very young age, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like,
I want to be a servant.
Yeah. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but you know what? They put that into you at a very, very young age to train you and to prime you to be something.
And do you know what? That's so true. And do you know what they'd never ask you? If you want to be free.
Right.
They ask you, give you all these options of different kinds of servitude. Would you like, do you want to be a fireman? Do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be like, all of these things that are the roles that they want to keep going. Now, of course, some of those roles, like particularly healthcare and stuff, like they have value. I'm not saying they don't.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But they're the only options you get. And they're like, they don't ask you actually, do you want to be happy? That question never comes up. Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be free? They say, this is what you do. And it's really interesting that, like you said, you start at school and the system of control starts there. Because you go into that cycle of school And it starts off with, say, the kindergarten teacher. And the
Yeah.
kindergarten teacher says, no, this is the right way to do things. If you don't do it that way, punished.
Yeah.
Then you go through like primary school or, you know, grade school, whatever, then through to high school and college. And it's all the same. This is the right way. If you don't do it, you're going to get a low mark, or you're going to get penalized. You're going to get in trouble, and all of these things. And you must aim for the best score, the best result you can get at school, because otherwise you'll be a failure.
Right.
And then you get out into the workplace, and all that's happened throughout this whole cycle is that the person who's keeping you in check is being switched out for somebody different.
That's
so
right.
It starts off with the kindergarten teacher, then the next teacher, and the next teacher, and the next teacher, and the college professor. And then you get in the workplace, and then it's the boss.
Yep.
And so all through life is exactly that same cycle.
Yeah.
And all the way along, you're being conditioned to be doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Which
my new favorite saying. My new favorite saying is the right thing. Do the right thing. And you're absolutely right. And when you said like no one asks these kids if they want to be happy, there's a little saying, and I can't remember where I heard it. And so it was years ago that I heard it. So forgive me if I say it wrong. But little Johnny goes to school, and the teacher asks him, like, little Johnny, what do you want to be when you grow up? And little Johnny says, I want to be happy. And the teacher says, I don't think you understand she's like, I don't think you understand the question. And little Johnny turned around, she's like, I don't think you understand life.
So true.
So true. And that stuck with me.
True.
Stuck with me, because if you ask as many people as you want, ask them, are you truly happy being in this cycle and trapped in this thing of you go to work and you give over way more time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears than your contract actually says that you are required. You give way too much. Then you got to drive home. You fight traffic for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, only to come home. And if you're in a horrible marriage, now you're stuck at home with a person you really don't like. Your kids are like just trying to survive, school at this point. And you look around and you only get 2 days a week. If you're lucky, your boss will allow you to have 2 days per week off. That is completely yours. If you are lucky that your boss is a kind-hearted person. And if you're lucky, especially in Canada, you'll have 2 weeks vacation every year. 2 weeks. That's it. And I don't know how many weeks you get down there, but
we get 4 here.
Okay. We get 2. And if you're really lucky, you can get that. The longer you work for the company, the more weeks vacation.
Right. Yeah.
So, but our government people, I have a good friend who is in the government, and I think her and her spouse are both up to like 15 weeks of vacation per year.
Holy crap.
And I had to beg and plead for 3.
Yeah.
Beg and plead for 3. So there's definitely something wrong there. There's definitely an imbalance. But if you ask people, are you happy? Probably not. Like in the true sense of the word. Because if you look at it, all of those things that they say we have to do, because they train us from a very young age to say, you go to school, you get a degree, you go to college, you get a degree. Don't get me started on school. And then you get a great job. And so you can buy a house. So you get the job so you can buy the house. Yes. You get married so you can have the children. You do this so you can do this. And what's the end game? At the end of all those, you do this so you can do that. The end game is to get you trapped in the cycle and in the system. That's
right. It's spot on. Keep everyone trapped in that same cycle. Keep giving your resources to the government. Keep giving your resources away. And really, what do you get out of it? Nothing. I mean, really, in a true sense. And I'm glad you said that before about happiness and true happiness, because I imagine a lot of people, if we ask them that question, would say, oh yeah, of course I'm happy. I've got, why are you happy? Because I've got the job, I've got the house, I've got the, no, not the stuff, like truly internally happy. Like, and I'm sure there are people out there who are fine. That's absolutely fine.
People who are doing their passion, their job is their passion. So when you're doing your passion, it doesn't feel like work. So those people are probably the happiest. And I am so happy for them for figuring that out.
Yep, good on them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, good on them. But for the most part, people are not happy. Like if you
No.
truly ask them, are you happy going to work 5 days a week? Are you happy just having 2 days off? Are you
Yeah.
happy with the hours you work? Are you happy with how much you get paid? Are you happy with life in general? Like, are you
Yeah.
happy with your marriage? Like all of these things. But it's like the initial response would be, of course I'm happy because I have what society says I need to have. I
Right.
have what society says I need to achieve.
Hmm.
And it's simply just a cycle, and it's to lock everybody into that cycle.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, you know, well, I feel like I'm free. And it said,
Mm.
well, and I said, well, if what happens if you don't go to work tomorrow? If you don't go
Mm.
to work for the next 2 months, what happens then? Well, I lose my job, and then what happens? Well, I lose my house, and then what happens? And you just keep scaling it back,
Yeah.
back, and it's like, okay, well, I have to do all those things, and so you're locked into it.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, like people listening, make no mistake, it is not for our benefit that the
Mm-mm.
government wants all these things to stay in place.
No.
It's not for our benefit, and
No.
with so many of these things that we talk about, money is the motivation. And
Mhm.
now, I think there's two, for me anyway, in my opinion, there's two main things that motivate all of this. One is a group of people who we don't know who they are exactly, but they have a more spiritual and negative motive
Mhm.
for us.
Mhm.
And the other is the people who control the money. And so I'm talking big corporations, Silicon Valley, I'm talking the banks, because the
Mhm.
big banks control everything.
Mhm.
And with that, they also control the government. So I feel like we've got the governments, then we've got banks, as
Mhm.
in the levels of control. So
Mhm.
governments, and then upper levels banks, and then upper level from that is the question mark. But to anyone who's listening, if you're not aware, the Federal Reserve is not a government entity. It is
No.
a private entity owned by private banks. So when the government, and we're going to do another chat about the
Yeah.
banking system, but just to
Yeah.
tie it into the control side of things, if so, the Federal Reserve say to the government, yeah, sure, we'll loan you money.
Mm.
We'll loan you, 10 trillion, $20 trillion. And then one day they say, you know what, government, it's time for us to call in our debt with the interest as well. You now owe
Mhm.
us $250 trillion.
Mhm.
Or you can do what we want,
Right.
and you can structure the world in a way that we want,
Yeah.
that makes us more money.
Right.
And we'll just forget some of that debt.
Yeah.
So, with those layers in place, the governments are just puppets, and we get kept into this system of control. We keep giving our resources away. And the sad thing is that through all the propaganda too, we are told that it's a good thing and that we should
Yes.
be so happy about it.
Yes. Oh yeah. They spin it in such a way that it when you're in it though, the thing is when you're in it, you can't see it. I couldn't see
Mhm.
it. I could not see
Yeah.
it when I was in it because I was in the corporate rat race. I was
Mhm.
in it. And it didn't occur to me until after the fact of how insane it was,
Yeah.
how much energy, how much I was actually giving of this company, of myself,
Mhm.
to the detriment of everything in my private life.
Right.
The complete detriment. Like it was falling apart around me. And I had
Mhm.
to keep going to work because you got to keep going to work because you got to pay the mortgage, you got to do this, you got to do that, and blah, 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 blah. But after I got out, I even I drilled it down. I'm like, who the hell made the rule that we got to work 9 to 5? Who made that rule? And it's almost a law, like you have to work 8 hours a day. Well, why do I have to
Yeah.
work 8 hours a day if I can get everything done in 2?
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yep.
I've done all my work in 2 hours and then just sat there at my desk thinking, okay, I got to go find someone to talk to. This is ridiculous. But I was chained to my
Yeah.
desk because the boss said, if you're not at your desk, you could be fired. You have to be working
Yep.
at all times. But I didn't have anything to do. I was a one-man show. My job was I was the department. And if it was around Christmas time, so my year end was already
Yeah.
done, my my busiest time was already done, and I was just kind of waiting for Christmas holidays because they're nice enough to give us a few days off for Christmas. And yeah, if I can get my job done in that amount of time, I should be able to go and have my life. I've already given you my work that you asked me to do. I've done it. So why are we forced, and who made up that rule, and why do we blindly agree? Like, there's so many different ones. There's so many different like rules that we just say, oh yeah, he works 9 to 5. Why?
Yep.
Why does he do that? Yep. Why do we do that?
Well, exactly. You know, and you're right. Everywhere we look. Now, talking about rules and them all being made up, like, let's talk about laws themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Laws. What are laws? They are nothing.
Right.
They're nothing.
Yeah.
They're bits of paper. They're bits of paper. They're not tangibly real. They are not a real thing.
Yeah.
What they are, though, is a common agreement between a massive group of people that is the way we will live, and those are the things that will govern our society.
Yes.
So really, a law can't do anything to me. Like,
no.
You know, and it's actually, I just thought of this there. When I was a kid, I actually asked my dad, I said, like, because I kept hearing people talking about like breaking the law. And I was like, what is the law? I said, Dad, what is the law? And I had this image in my head, I don't know why, of like some guy in a trench coat walking on the side of the road, because it must have been to do with, no, not a peeping Tom. It must have been to do with.
Was it a flasher?
It must have been to do with people talking about being pulled over on the side of the road. And that's why I associated the side of the road.
Okay.
But I was like, what is the law? I had no concept, no idea about what it was.
Right.
And then when it was explained to me, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what it is. But you can't grab it. You can't feel it. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah. It can't be bought or sold.
It can't be bought or sold. It's just a common agreement that's made up, just like so many other things. Now, I might get some flack for this, but that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Religion's exactly the same.
Yes.
Religion is just, again, made up. And often you find that the laws come from a religious background. So it's like, okay, well, we made this thing up and everybody agrees to this common thing that it exists.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when did that happen? When did we say that we can just make things up and get common agreement about it? And now that's fact. That's actual fact.
And if you breaking the law, like the thing is, a lot of these rules are silly. Like, and I get flack for this all the time, because everyone's like, well, what about we can't go around like murdering people. But the thing is, if you ask 1 million people, would you actually do something like that? You're like, no. There's only the odd person that would actually physically go and do it. So we're worried about a law that is, and we're talking premeditated here. Like, we're not talking accidents.
Right. Yeah,
accidents or accidents, but premeditated. So you're only looking at like a small portion of people that law is actually for.
Right.
Because the rest of us were like, yeah, it's against law, but also not something I would want to do. Like, I have no desire to do that thing that you've just imposed this law on. So the law is important for those people who would actually like follow through. But half the laws are just so stupid. They're just so stupid.
Yeah. And in that example you just gave, if I said to you, if you're, okay, let's run this little scenario quickly.
Okay.
You're a murderer. Like, you're a bad person.
Okay.
And you want to murder somebody.
Okay.
Does me telling you you're not allowed to do that because it's against the law, stop you from actually doing it?
Nope. I don't care.
Right. Of course, you're going to do it anyway.
Absolutely.
Because that's the type of person that you are.
Yes.
So, and it's the same thing when they say, I've seen these ridiculous videos and ad campaigns and everything telling all men to not rape women. And it's like, not all men are raping women.
Right.
And the ones who are doing it are going to do it whether you tell them it's bad or not.
Absolutely.
Because they're bad people. So
that's right.
Telling them it's bad doesn't make them go, oh, geez, I'm so glad you told me. Now I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to do it anyway, because inherently they know it's bad.
Yeah.
We can feel as a human being. We forget all the made up laws, forget all of that garbage. We feel it as a human being that when we do something to somebody else that puts them in pain or puts them in harm or something like that, we know it's bad.
Right.
We don't need the laws to tell us that.
Right.
But the thing is, I agree on somebody being punished if they're caught
Yeah.
murdering somebody or doing something
Right.
bad like that. But to having those laws, it's more the philosophy of it, because
Yes.
having these rules and laws and everything like that doesn't stop people from being bad.
Right.
They're already bad people. Like you said, 99% of the people out there are just good people anyway,
Yeah.
and don't want to do any of these bad things.
Yeah.
But by dictating to them and telling them, this is what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and where it really encroaches on people's freedom, I feel, is choice. When you no longer have a choice to do what you want to do, and you could be, we all have different beliefs, and so what makes one belief more important than another, so much so you can put a law in place? It's like, I don't know, I've heard of that before, but it didn't end well. There was world wars over it.
Yes,
so
it doesn't end well. And I feel that they start off small and see how the people behave, and see if it's easily adaptable within the people. And then if that one's okay, well then, let's push the envelope a little bit. See this one and this one. And next thing you know, our human rights are being taken away. And even though human rights, those are made up too. And if a group of people sat down at a table and said, you know what, I think that people should not do this anymore. And half the time I have found laws are driven around people who just don't like that certain behavior.
Yes.
That's where half the laws came from, is that the person in charge at that time said, you know what, I don't like this. So you know what? No one can do it anymore.
Right.
And I think that's horrible, that just because I don't like a behavior, I'd prefer a different kind. Who the F am I to turn around and say, you know what, you absolutely can't do it anymore. And if you do, you're going to jail, or you're going to get a fine, or something bad's going to happen, and you're not going to like it just because I didn't like it. Who the hell do I think I am?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Like, it all comes down to somebody's personal preference of what they like and don't like, and then it becomes law. And then when the propaganda machine talk about it enough, it becomes the norm. It becomes a part of everyday life, and people just accept it. And the other thing too about that is they're very clever. They're very, very clever in how they do this and how they get people to comply. Because if you look back through history, and hopefully people, will go and do this after the podcast, after they listen to this episode. But if you look back through history at some of the major disasters or events or things that have impacted the world, what they do is they manipulate the masses into calling for the government's intervention to solve a problem. Now, what people don't realize or don't ask or don't see is that the government created the problem in the first place for a specific reason, for a specific agenda, to achieve a specific goal. And so what they do is they create the problem, and they make it so bad, they blame it on somebody else. Of course, they don't say it's the government. It's blamed on somebody else.
Another religion.
That's right. It's blamed on a leader in a different country. It's blamed on another religion. It's blamed on whatever it is, terrorists, whatever it's blamed on. But what they do then is they create that, and then they go, the people in turn go, oh my gosh, it's so horrible, because the media is blasting out there how terrible this leader, this religion, this thing is, and it gets blasted out there. And what that does is create outrage in the public. And then the public say, government, you have to do something. You need to step in and do something here. And then what the government does is they do step in. They say, okay, we don't want to, but we'll put these laws in place that will protect everybody. We don't want to do this. We don't want to take away your freedom, but we'll do it because you're asking us to do it. You're begging us to do it to stop this other thing that's probably not even real. This other threat that's not even real, but they've created it. And so it keeps going on and on and on. And you can see it so often throughout history.
You really can, because once the event is done, and it's because when we have the ability to look back after it's done, when you're in it, you can't really see it. Like, you can't really see the end game when you're in it.
Right.
And so when we can look back and we can trace back, okay, this was the outcome that we got. But what was the event before that? And what was the event before that? You can actually see it. So I know a lot of people are like, oh no, the government would never do something like that. Well, because the government's told you that they would never do something like that.
Yeah. And they were believed.
Yeah.
But they said it's like the kid in the playground who pushed over Jenny, and the teacher said, "Did you push over Jenny?" And I said, "I never did it. I didn't do it."
Yeah.
Like, and people just go, instead of the teacher going, sorry, the public is the teacher in this scenario, but instead of the teacher going, "Well, I don't believe you because she's got a cut on her knee and these other people saw you do it."
Yeah.
No. Everybody just goes, "Okay, cool. We believe you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem.
We believe you. And there's this inherent belief in people that the government is there for their best interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it is absolutely not the case. I mean, what you just talked about, like looking back in hindsight and stepping it back from this happened and before that it was this and this and this. So going back to the 60s, and there are a lot of unredacted documents now, but this exact thing that we're talking about now, where they set this up, and so they set up a problem, they wait for the outrage, and then they have the solution. And what that involves is normally taking away freedom, and people clapping and applauding as the freedom's taken away.
Yeah.
But in the 60s, I forget the year, so I apologize for that. But the CIA, JFK actually stopped a planned exercise, and a document has been released now, where the CIA wanted to essentially perform a terrorist act in, I think it was Cuba at the time, perform a terrorist act.
It was Cuba. I think it was 1969, actually. I think that was what it is.
I think so too. Yeah. So they wanted to perform this terrorist act. This is the CIA. They wanted to take down a plane, a US plane with private citizens in it.
Yep.
So that they could instigate a war with Cuba. And they would have a reason, and they would have support from the public to do so.
Yep.
That is not a conspiracy theory. That is not made up. That is not coming from just you and me. That is a CIA official document that has now been unredacted.
Yep.
And so if you want to sit there and tell me that they don't do this, well, you can. That's your belief, and that's your opinion.
That's cool.
But for me, I'm just going to go with the facts and what I see.
Yeah.
And the logical flow of how it works. Like you said, step it back from here to here to here and see what the motives are.
Yeah. What was the end game? And then roll it back a little bit. And you can see it. You can see it clear as day. And you're right. And people, because it's the fear, they give you so much fear. They pump the news and everything with nothing but fear. So the people are like, well, this is a horrible situation. We need laws in place to protect. I need a law to protect me.
Yeah.
And the government's like, well, I'm glad you asked. We're so glad you brought that up, because you know what? We just happen to have this shiny new law over here that's going to take away about 50% of your freedom.
We've been polishing this law for years, and now it's ready. It's all shiny. Yeah. It's ready to just roll out and showcase to everyone.
It's the showcase showdown. You guys are going to love it.
It's been really, just casually learning in the background for years. And now it's polished. It's standing up, it's ready to go. Yeah. So no, it's a good point. And I think that the reason people are because they're stuck in this work cycle, and the I have to get to the next moment, I have to get to the next day, I have to get to the next, and just try and survive. Everyone's stuck in that loop cycle. They can't step outside and see what's going on, because their focus, their attention so much on what they have to do to keep this cycle going, that they can't step out of it and say, well, hang on a minute, what is reality? Like, none of this is actually real. I'm going to have to stay involved in it because it's too big now. And to be able to step away from it. Like,
and I'm too far deep. I'm too deep in it, because man, oh man, did I fall hook, line, and sinker for all of this?
Yep.
So now I'm on the hook for, 3 cars, 2 homes, like a home and a cottage and a boat and this and that, because society told me that this is what I needed. And it's not necessarily like, and the laws that go around in it, because technically you do have to go to work. Like, you don't have to, no one has to do anything. Like, I don't have to go to work. Right. I don't have to make money, but, where does that leave me?
Well, that's just it though. That's the base level of it. But
Yeah.
how do you go and get food these
Right.
days if you don't work? Like,
No,
because
you can't.
how do you get money? You can't barter with somebody.
No.
That's illegal. You
Yeah.
can't say, I'll give you this and you give me that.
How silly is that you can't, bartering is illegal. Now, I don't know if it's illegal in Canada, but I do know it's illegal in a lot of places. Why is it illegal to barter? Why is that law in place?
I've
That
got an answer for you.
I can't trade my water bottle for your bowl of cereal. Why can't I do that? Because we can. The thing is, like, we can.
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes.
But if we're found out doing it, much like me working on, not declaring my income, heaven forbid, you're in a whole lot of trouble.
Well, I've got the perfect answer for you. Well, it's not
Okay.
perfect, but it's an answer.
Okay.
Because the money can't, the government can't get a piece of that pie. They can't tax it, can they?
Nope.
So, and they can't control it either.
Right.
So imagine this for a second. Like, imagine, I don't know, what's the skill? I'm a plumber. Let's say I'm a plumber.
All right.
And there's a carpenter, someone who can build homes. And the builder says, hey, if you plumb all of these houses for me that I'm building, I will build you a house. Like, if you do so many plumbing jobs for me, I will build you a house. Whatever that works out to be.
Yeah.
And then come to some agreement. There you go. There's no money involved.
Yeah.
Like, just at a in a theoretical sense.
Yeah.
There is no money involved, but they've bartered that. But the government can't get all the business taxes from both businesses. They can't get all of the income tax from the individuals.
Right.
They can't have those homes or that home registered on their system, on their database, and all of these things. So there's all of these other reasons why the government wants to get involved.
Yeah.
But
they're involved in everything.
Yeah. But and this is a question I want to ask the people listening as well. I want to ask this question. How involved do you want your government in your life? How involved do you want them? Because really the answer should be
not
zero. Not at all. Because who are the government? They're nobody. They're not your friend. They're not somebody who looks after you. Then it's nothing positive, really.
Yeah. But
people are so eager for it, and people just keep applauding governments all over the world. I don't understand.
Yeah. They get their fingers into everything. They're into our marriages, they're into our bank accounts, they're into our retirement savings. Like, this law that we can't work after the age of 65. Like, you gotta, like, at 65, you got to start taking out your retirement here anyways. I think they've bumped it up because we're living a little bit longer than past decades, past generations. But, like, all of a sudden at 65, you're set out to pasture, and now you got to take out your retirement, and the government will give you a little assistance, but you're on your own. Like, technically you're on your own. The government does not give you enough to survive, but they pushed you out of the work system. They pushed you out. You can't work anymore, but they're not giving you enough to survive at the same level you did as you were working, but you're still healthy upstairs and physically to work. But they've really, like, if you look at it, it's just, it's a complete mess. They're in your marriage. You can't leave someone without the government saying, okay. Yeah. And let me tell you, if I realized how hard it was to get divorced, it was an easy, well, actually it wasn't. That's a conversation for another time, but it was a somewhat easy, I do for a couple $100, and an impossible fight of money and possessions and everything, years on top of years, and tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands to get out of it. Also, some dude in a robe and a gavel could say, you know what? Yeah, you can go. Like, well, I wanted to go years ago, but you wouldn't let me.
Yeah, that's right. Because they wanted to get their piece of the pie first. And why on earth, why in this universe, or this plethora of universes that we have, but why should we need to have anybody tell us whether we can or can't be with somebody? Like, So in the beginning, yeah, and I feel you exactly, with that whole scenario, because yep, it's easy, it's expensive, but
Mhm.
it's easy to get married
Mhm.
in the beginning. Like that's all easy.
Yeah.
But the leaving part,
Mhm.
well, not so easy, and I
Yeah.
mean even more expensive, because it's like, well, these are the things that now dictate what happened when you separate, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, hang on a minute, I don't care about this and this that you're saying is so important,
Right.
and I do care about this and this, and the actual well-being of the parties involved is really barely taken into account. They
No.
say it is, of course,
Yeah,
they
of
say it
course
is,
it's not.
but it's really not, because
No.
going to court, doing all of these things is not in the benefit of anybody.
No.
It doesn't benefit anyone except
No.
for the system itself
Yes.
and
Yes.
the lawyers who make an arm and a leg
Yeah.
going through the whole process. So
Yeah.
um and when you're already in a situation you don't want to be in, obviously,
Mhm.
because you're wanting to get a divorce or you're wanting to separate,
Yeah.
and then going through these other layers and levels of frustration and anger, and all of these things that just are barriers to your happiness,
Mhm.
because you've
Mhm.
been unhappy clearly,
Yeah,
and
clearly.
now you've got these other hurdles, and I'm no Olympian, so jumping hurdles is hard. Like,
Yeah.
there's more and more to jump over to try and get to
Yeah.
that happiness. um and when I say happiness, I mean you can have that while you're going through the hurdles.
Oh,
It's fine, but
absolutely.
but
It's
to be
stressful.
done, like, and to leave that thing behind and to be done with it,
Yeah.
it's such a hard journey, really, when it
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
No, it
It
should
shouldn't
be,
be.
it should, and marriage, yeah. Well, we all know how I feel about marriage. But the thing is, like, even like your marriage license, like we pay the government in order to get a license, in order to get married. That should have been my first indication that this is not something for you, sister. This is not
Yep.
something you want to do.
Yep.
Like, they've got their finger in everything. And I think that is why they push marriage. They push marriage, especially for little girls from a very, very young age, because every time, and let me tell you, every time they get that little piece of paper with the receipt that says, yeah, this one just paid $300 for their marriage license. So we'll see them in about 5 years and we can kill them in the
Yes.
divorce cycle.
Yes,
We'll
absolutely.
get them then. So they're just,
Yeah.
they're just watching it go and they're like, well, in 5 to 10 years, we're set.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, but don't forget, the government's got your best interest at heart.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
everything they do is for the people, and they're so just
Yeah.
benevolent and really looking after us at every
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
No, they're pretending to look after us while
Yeah.
taking our money and taking our resources. That's what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And we comply because we have to, under fear of punishment.
That's
Really.
just it. They've got us, they've got you by, they've got you. They've got you by the balls.
They've got you by the balls. Yeah. And they're squeezing tighter, like, and I feel like these days they're even twisting, and
Yes. It's
it's
getting
extremely
ridiculous.
uncomfortable. And when they start coming into your, encroaching in your lives more and more, you just feel like, well, how do I escape this? How do I get out of
Yeah.
this? And really, at this point, unless people wake up en masse and
Yeah.
realize what's going on, because if you think about that, we all have our individual freedom, and if 7, 8 million, a billion people just decided one day, hang on a minute, I am actually physically free,
Hmm.
and I can make my own decisions, and I can do whatever I want. I
Right.
actually don't have to recognize any laws. I don't have to recognize anything.
Right.
I'll try and be a good person, but I don't have to recognize any of it. And so if we realize that, there goes control immediately,
Yes. They don't
because
want that.
they can't arrest 8 billion people,
No.
but to control 8 billion people, they need to make up these ideals and let everyone think that it's their idea, that it's all
Hmm.
for the common good.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you said, like recently, like even myself, I'm like, well, it would just be easier if I did X, Y, and Z, because the
Mhm.
pressure would be off if I just did. If I didn't, if I went against my belief
Yes.
system, because that's what the government is asking a lot of people to do, is go against their belief
Yep.
system in a lot of ways. In
Yep.
a lot of ways they're asking, it's like, okay, fine, I'll go against my belief system. Like, if I do this thing that you want me to do, will you shut up? Like,
Right.
will I never have to hear from you ever again? Can you
Yep.
promise me that? Because it's worth it. Like, they cramp down so hard that no matter what the agenda is, like complying is just like, well, if you'll shut up, then yes, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's so true.
It's
It's so
exhausting.
true. And that's just it. They created the problem.
Yeah.
They make it put so much pressure on people until people start begging for something, like do something that will give us our freedom back.
Yeah.
And that's happening right now. And like you said,
Yes.
and I am with you. I am with you 100%. I will do what they want me to do, even though it goes well against my belief system,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to be able to get them out of my life. Like I want them out of
Yeah.
the conversation, out of my life. And I want to
Yeah.
have that level of freedom again, because I would
Yeah.
say they'll always be keeping us under some kind of control and under some kind of
Yeah.
restriction, always.
Yeah.
Especially when we want something, like if we
Yes.
want to be able to go somewhere or do something or
Yeah.
whatever it is, they'll be able to keep control. But yeah, I'm willing to go against my beliefs as well for that, but I want them to go away. I want
Yeah.
the government to shut up about it
Mm-hmm.
and just leave me alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a sad state that we're in at the moment. But the fact that we can realize and we can talk about it, and I just encourage people to like look for that. What does freedom look like to you? What does that internal, energetic, spiritual freedom look like? And because yeah, we have to pay the bills, but spiritually and energetically, we don't have to go along with everything that they say.
Yes. Yes. There is a great saying that says when you go to work, because obviously it's something we have to do. It's like the bottom rung of life. You go to work and then the rest just builds up after, because as your friend noticed, once you don't go to work, it's like a domino effect. It all falls apart. So there's this great saying, and I love it. When you go to work, give of your hands, but not of your heart.
Yes, I
Just
do. That's awesome.
yes, because if you don't give of your heart, your emotions aren't involved and you can't be emotionally drained, and like you're just giving of your time. That's it. Like, cause it's an exchange. It is a barter system of I will come work for you and I will do this job and you will pay me money. But just give of your hands. Just don't be so emotionally invested. Cause I feel a lot of people are so emotionally invested in their work that it blinds them. Like they're blinded by their work. And it's because society and the government has said, hey, if you work really, really hard, put your head down, and you work really, really hard, you can attain this thing.
Yeah.
That thing will not always be just out of reach, but for many, many, many people, it is impossible. It's impossible because it's set up as a failure. There's like this carrot is always in front of them. So if you just give with your hands and you don't get emotionally involved, it's easier for you to see. And you could probably see other ways of bringing in more money that could get you to that thing. Like there are more ways other than what we're told. And
absolutely,
you are entitled to have time off to yourself to do whatever the hell you want. You're entitled to be happy. You're entitled to shut off all your devices and just say, you know what, world, nope, I am done with you right now and I can't handle anymore. And just start to notice, like, when we look at laws that we just blindly follow, like, who made this up? Who's the wise guy who thought of this? And why am I saying, okay, like
exactly.
There's just
like,
so many.
Why?
And
question everything. Just question everything. You may get a reasonable answer at some point to some of these things, but just question everything.
Yes.
And like to keep going on and on and on in this cycle, it's like we're all animals. That's what we are. We're a species. Like we are just a species of animal. And there was a time thousands and thousands of years ago when we just blended into the ecosystem like every other animal. And so when you think about this, for people out there, like in this context, like you just said, we deserve to have our own time, our own energy, our own thoughts, feelings. We have to do whatever the hell we want because we are just animals. That's all we are. We are just another animal on this earth that is flipping around in space, and we should be able to go and do whatever we want. Everything else has been constructed either physically or metaphorically to keep us contained and to keep our minds contained and heading in a direction that the government wants us to go. So Just remember,
Yeah.
people, we're animals. We're just another species on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's going to be someone say, well, if everyone does whatever they're going to do, there's going to be chaos. But the thing is, I don't think there will be. I think there will be, like, if we were to say, okay, we're free, everyone's free, let's say for a week. And I'm not talking the purge. I'm just saying, like, you can go do whatever you want.
Right.
We don't give people enough credit that 99% of people are good and they just want to be happy. That is it. They don't want to take their anger out on other people because they don't like it when it's done to them. So we're kind of saying, like, society sucks and that's why we need the rules. But if we let people, I'm going to leave it like this because we're almost at that mark of wrapping up. We look at, like, let's look at the animal kingdom. Let's look at cats or bunnies or whatever. So the mom and the dad, they do their thing and they have babies. You don't see a bunny going to Lamaze class. You don't see a cat, making sure she's got all her things in order. Well, she does. Like, they make sure they have, like, their bed ready, whatever. But when the baby comes, they naturally know what to do. Like, we just let them go to it. We don't worry when our pets or animals outside have babies because they just naturally know. Well, guess what? We are exactly the same. And if we were just to be able to come into this world and just go by our own natural instincts and our natural resources, it would be a completely different scenario. But no, because we have the opposable thumbs and we have the ability to build things, and we are of service. We have to have these rules and things in containment because it's like training a dog.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And that's exactly it. And so that's a great way to leave it. I mean,
I think so.
It is so true. And it's been a great discussion today. I think
really great
discussion. I hope everybody out there really enjoyed it because I certainly did. And I hope everyone's having some thoughts now, about what these rules are and why they're in place. And, if you want to look at some of the things we talked about and go do some more research as well.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I hope everybody enjoyed today and join us for the next episode as well.
Yeah. So thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you so much for listening. We wish you nothing but a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.